We are ready to be without water for some time, without electricity for some time, but the main to be without Russians, the main to be without invaders, and to liberate our country.
Russia unleashed a missile barrage across Ukraine, forcing shutdowns of nuclear power plants and killing at least 6 civilians. All of the Kyiv capital region, where over 3 million people live, lost electricity and running water, Kyiv's governor said, as were many other regions where emergency blackouts were necessary to help conserve energy and carry out repairs. Let's try to get an update on what is happening in Ukraine with Oleksiy Goncharenko, who's a member of the Ukrainian parliament and chairman of the Odessa Regional Council. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Can you give us an update on what's happening in Ukraine and I suppose specifically really in Kyiv? What is the situation with electricity there and water?
The situation is extremely difficult, not only in Kiev, but throughout the whole country. In Kiev from yesterday until today, yesterday, like the whole Kiev was without electricity supply and without water because of lack of power, without heating. Today, 70% of Kiev are still without electricity. And in general, the whole country, it's like almost complete blackout yesterday happened. And it's absolutely awful because you can just imagine what awful challenges are to hospitals, because hospitals are without electricity, to people living in the big cities. It's a real disaster. It's a real humanitarian catastrophe, and it's a real act of terror from Russia. They proved that yesterday's decision of European Parliament that Russia is a state sponsor of terrorism is completely true, because this is attack not against military objects, but absolutely only against civilians.
Do you get the impression, though, and I mean, this is no one would wish this on the Ukrainians, of course, but do you get the impression that that Ukrainians are able to operate almost in all circumstances? If things like this happen, if obviously people have lost their lives, but if power goes completely, if water goes completely for short periods of time or for longer periods of time, that this is something that they just deal with.
For us, yeah, the situation is very harsh, but for us, the whole this war is existential.
Mm.
It's to be or not to be. So, we are ready to be without water for some time, without electricity for some time, but the main to be without Russians, the main to be without invaders, and to liberate our country. And we are ready sorry to say it, but to suffer
Mm.
without something absolutely needed for like a civilized person, but to have a future that is more important for us. And comparing to the sufferings and to the victims of our soldiers and officers on front line, I mean, it's nothing, and people realize it. But for sure, that will have consequences, and unfortunately, we will have a new wave of displaced people, because just imagine a person living on the 20th floor in the big city with no electricity, no elevator, no heating, no, you cannot cook, no water supply. You cannot live like this. So part of people will go to rural area, part of people will need to go abroad. That is a very big challenge. So the only thing which can change it is to provide Ukraine now as quickly as possible with the air defense to cover our critical infrastructure, because we are repairing it all the time, but Russians again and again are hitting it.
Mm. Um, on the energy point, there's a real contrast here because many people in Ukraine without power because of the action of Russia. And in this country, the government are going to tell us to reduce our energy usage. This has happened in other European countries as well. But the government looks like they're finally deciding they're actually going to tell us officially through a campaign to reduce our energy usage. Our Chancellor said, for most people, we need you to play your part in reducing our energy dependency on what Putin chooses to do in Ukraine. What would you say to people in this country about reducing their energy usage?
Yeah, I would like, first of all, to thank UK people for all support we are receiving from the United Kingdom. And I understand that this winter will be also not easy for you. But yes, that that energy is expensive, but the freedom is priceless, and our common values are priceless, and we cannot be independency from tyrannies. I think this should be the lesson of what everything what's going on now. The free world should count on itself in also in the question of energy, and we cannot count on them. It's not only about Russia, unfortunately. It's a wider question.
Mm.
So very like intelligent consumption is probably the key for next years, and also it's very good for our nature, for our environment. So let us do it. Let us make our environment better, and let us make our world better without dependency from tyrannies. So I ask you just to be tough, like keep calm and continue to support Ukraine. That's what I want to ask the United Kingdom people.
Okay, Oleksiy, thank you. That is Oleksiy Goncharenko, member of the Ukrainian Parliament and chairman of the Odessa Regional Council.
A couple